Good evening and welcome back to VicMania Thursday Night Racing, Season 16B, Round 1. The rules for tonight's race are a 60-minute race at 6 times speed, no mandatory pit stop and refueling banned. Looking at the top 15 in qualifying here, and we see Jozen got pole position with 135.140. And it's lights out and away we go at Zandvoort. This race didn't start too cleanly. There was a bit of contact before the first corner and contact after the first corner. Hamilton spotted an opportunity around Vinny, but didn't realise the wall closed in and contact was made there. Vinny then bumped Skinny Luke, sending him off into the gravel and down the order. Cupo rang wide onto the grass at turn 3, trying to go around the outside of Hamilton. A train was starting to form behind Vinny as the pack passed through the back half of the track. The slightest of contacts was made between Skinny Luke and Dylan Lester, which sent Lester off into the grass. Fletcher dived Dylan, which didn't pay off. Wolfer had a bit of an awkward rejoin, which ended up tagging Jared in and causing a traffic jam. Hamilton got a good run on Vinny approaching the final corners, but a poor execution of the overtake left him vulnerable to Skinny Luke down the pit straight. Norman got a good run on O'Brien down the pit straight. Getting to the end of the straight, O'Brien let both Norman and Wolfer through. All of that was just the first lap. Lap 2 saw Skinny Luke make an unsuccessful dive on Hamilton. The start of the third lap saw Hamilton and Skinny getting quite close to Vinny, however it ended in tears for Hamilton, suffering significant damage to his aero pack. On lap 4, Wolfer used the battle between Fletcher and Martin to make this utterly sublime double overtake. Lap 6 had an incident between Martin and Ing as Norman went off the track in front of them. Two laps later, O'Brien lost it on his own at turn 3. He spun again at just a few corners later as well. Meanwhile, Jozen was building a gap and extended it over Tunks. There were tight battles going on all across the field. Contact occurred between Lester and McMillan at turn 3, resulting in unison spins. This allowed Skinny Luke to gain 2 places. Lester had a bit of an off, which had dropped in 2 positions down, but he quickly regained them back later on. Pressure from Wells caused Reynolds to have an off at turn 3 and hit the wall. McMillan had a bit of an issue on the bendy straight and he left his car in a precarious position. Fletcher, Ing and Wolfer were all getting it on together, very kinkily. Hamilton used the old scare tactic to get past Heckinger. No contact actually made. In reality, he only just missed his braking point. It wasn't intentional. Vinny had been suffering a stuck brake pedal all race and eventually pitted while he sorted out the problem. After his spin, McMillan was catching up on Heckinger and they were starting to have a bit of a duel. Out front, Tunks had done a much better job than Joslin at maintaining his tyres, and on the 25th lap was definitely catching him. Reynolds had his mirrors full of Skinny Luke in the state-coloured McLaren. Tunks was getting very close to Joslin by the 27th lap. Fletcher and Wolfer were also getting their battle axes on. Struggling with damage and worn tyres, Hamilton was having to defend against Heckinger in the final laps. Contact was made which allowed McMillan through past Heckinger. Cupo was all over the back of Will Pay's derriere. Tunks went for a dive on Johnson for a gap that just simply wasn't there. He was never going to make that corner. Hamilton was doing more defensive driving. Heckinger retook the position from McMillan the same lap with this beauty. The following lap he tried the same again on Hamilton, however this didn't work and it ended in tears for both. Going into the final lap, Tunks made a little error on the final corner, which dropped him back from a tight battle. The final lap battle was that good that we're not even going to cut it, we're going to show you the whole thing. Several laps of pressure from Leicester on Reynolds resulted in Reynolds making a little error on the final lap, handed the position over. Will Pay, Cupo and Skinny Luke all finished together, 4th, 5th and 6th. Looking at the results, 1st, 2nd and 3rd go to Johnson, Tunks and Christian. Fastest lap was Vinny with a 1:35.582, and 1st, 2nd and 3rd in AM class were Heckinger, Fletcher and Wolfer. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week at Alton Park.